Hello, so today we're just going to be taking a quick look at the new iiSU Alpha, which is 0.0.5. So this is mainly a kind of quality of life update with some UI improvements, and also there seem to have been a considerable amount of bug fixes on the back end. It seems a lot more stable than the previous one. So I'll quickly give you a little look over some of these new options. There's not many brand new features, it's mainly, like I said, fixes and UI improvements. So see here, there's some inconsistency with some of my dark mode icons versus the light mode icons. But if we go into, say, our home screen, so they've used some of the different box art for the little jump back in icon down here, which is handy. And also, if we press our start button, you can change the icon size if you want bigger icons, if you like big chunky icons, or if you want really, really tiny icons, which I don't know how good your eyesight is, but it's probably better than mine. But at that point, the jump back in kind of becomes mostly unusable, I think. So it's your choice. I'm not going to judge you much. You can also reorder the home icons. So if you press and hold, and then you can just use your analog stick, or I think you can drag as well. Nope, you can't drag. So yeah, hold the A button and then just arrange stuff however you'd like. You can also do that for the console. So if you press and hold, press start, and then you can reorder the consoles, and then do the same thing if you want to have all your Nintendo stuff together, or your Sony stuff together. So that's quite a nice little feature. Also, you'll notice that this menu has been redesigned, so it's still not the most intuitive, but it's a lot easier to follow than it was. So it's many steps in the right direction. So, for example, you now have more scraper options. So if you want to scrape all consoles, or scraper all consoles, you can now use IGDB, Screen Scraper, Steam Grid DB, or the Games DB, and the scraping seems a lot more robust. So it can run in the background. It asks you if you want it to run in the background. It just all in all seems a lot more stable. So they've really made some great strides with regards to that. So down the side here we have our settings. So you can set the launch behavior. So this is just controls your home button, which if you use iiSU as your default is something you'd want. You have the home layout. You can show the home on the bottom screen if you want, or you can have it the opposite way. I believe this used to be called DS mode or 3DS mode. Personally, I prefer having the home screen on the bottom, so I'll need to change that back. There we go. So you can manually, as well as scraping, they've also separated out the retro achievements hashing, because I believe that this was causing some of the issues when it was scraping the retro achievements hashes. So that was what was causing kind of a lot of the slugginess of the scraping, but that seems to have mostly been resolved. Obviously, still not very fast, but it's definitely a noticeable improvement. You can have some general layout options, which covers pretty much the same as what we saw on the home screen. If you prefer smaller console icons without affecting your home screen icons, you can do that separately. You can also do it individually per console. So if I decide I want to see more Game Boy games, you can have more rows. So they've really added a lot of the UI improvements. So it's really great to see. Just pop that back to where it was. Well, you could have massive box art. So you also have these different layouts. Personally, I just leave it on grid, but they have this compact list, which it just gives you the names. I don't know if there's plans, because I think it'd be quite good if it still had the box art in there. So I don't know if that's something that's planned. But yeah, it kind of looks a little bit plain. And then there's also the carousel. There's two versions of this. There's horizontal and vertical. Again, this looks fine. I don't know if you can see there that obviously the dimensions of the border are smaller than the box art. So I imagine there's probably some fixes that are due to be done there. But personally, I think I'd prefer to see more of like a kind of sliding carousel, like we've seen on the iiSU interpreted theme on ESDE. This Obviously, it's still an early alpha, but yeah, so I'm hoping to see more improvements with that. And then there's also a vertical carousel layout if you prefer vertical scrolling. So this one has some sort of box there, which I believe is for the core, possibly, but you can't really see it. So there are some UI designs still to be implemented and some bug fixes that way. But in terms of usability, we're miles ahead. If you ever saw my first my front end overview, I couldn't cover iiSU originally because it was so broken I couldn't even get it to work. Whereas now, I don't know if I'd use this as a daily driver yet. However, if you wanted to, you could. Obviously, it'd still be very buggy, but it'd still be somewhat usable for the most part. There is also, they've added, if you use Game Hub Lite or Game Native, and you can add the Steam shortcuts to your home screen, so they go into this Steam folder. Now there is something I'll need to change that back to grid. So there is a bit of an issue which I think they are working on. So it doesn't launch the game directly, but it takes you to that game within, in this case, Game Hub Lite. So if I can open up Megabong and launch it in the top screen, it does take me straight there, but it'd be good to have that additional step to just boot the game, like it would with a ROM, where it passes it to the emulator and loads it immediately. But I believe that that is something they are looking into. There's also, in our menu, go to Thor settings, you can change the brightness the same as you would if you pressed the AYN button like that. I do believe that they have been working with AYN officially on this. Whether or not that means that further down the line you could probably reroute the actual AYN button on the device to bring up this screen, I don't know. That would be great. I don't know if they'd want to keep that at the kind of kernel level, so it always goes to that AYN screen for security and just general management, but something that could potentially be explored at a later date. So there's also, you can change, we go back to the Thor settings, you can also use the top screen only, bottom screen only display options. They haven't yet added the controller locking feature, so if you press the AYN button and you go to settings, so a lot of this hasn't been implemented yet. I'm assuming it's planned to if they've already done some of the settings, and like I said, they've been working with AYN officially, so we'll just have to see what comes. Again, if you are interested in supporting the developers and getting access to the pre-releases, you can check out their Ko-Fi, which is linked on their website. I'll link it below as well. It's $5 a month. It supports the developers and it gives you early access to play around. So like this version I've been using for probably about a week or so, and it's, I think, 2 days ago it's just gone live. 4 days ago it's finally come out, so it's been nice to get those kind of early previews. So I believe for the most part that's all. So yeah, press that Wi-Fi button, it just takes you to your usual settings. Whether or not it will become kind of a full front end, I don't know. I suppose it all depends on their relationship with AYN. One thing as well I do want to cover, because when I first showed iiSU, I thought it looks a bit bland. They have added in our, where is it now? So yeah, like I said, some of the navigation is a little bit funky, and it does take a little bit of exploring, or that could just be me. So you change your asset storage from internal to external, so that's obviously very handy. You can also swap your ABXY buttons if you like. I suppose that's more for if you're using a different device. Obviously with the Thor, I'm just going to leave it as is because it's got the switch layout. But if you have changed the buttons and gone for the Xbox layout, then that is something you can enable on there. You can enable and disable UI sounds. So in this appearance, this is what I was looking for. So we have these theme styles. So normally I have the dark, so I'll switch it to that for now. So what you can do is in iiSU themes, you can now create themes. So if you create a theme, you can set custom background images for light and dark mode, and then you can save that and export it as a zip file. So if you ever need to upgrade or reset your configuration, you've always got that theme. I believe it also supports MP4s, so if you have video backgrounds like that are available through Wallpaper Engine, or custom videos that you might have created or stolen from someone's website, then you can use those as well. Going back to appearance, yeah, so there is an option to disable the video background. I don't know if that just turns it off or just pauses it. I don't have a video background check. So what I wanted to point out was this scrim. So, like a lot of these options, I do wish it was a bit better at explaining what those options did, maybe with some tool tips or a little descriptions. I didn't know what a scrim was. And then I thought, hang on, my background look. Originally, I'll show you, it looked. It looked like that. It looked very plain. And I thought, everyone else looks really nice. Why does mine look so rubbish? So it's the opacity of the scrim. So the scrim is the background layer. So if we want to just drop that down. One thing I do like is because it's kind of a vignette style. So you can, rather than have, you could have it completely set to 0. It does it in like 5% increments. Ooh, there we go. But I quite like having just a very subtle, about 45%, and you get this kind of nice subtle vignette around the edges, which I really like. There's also, so in the title options, you can show the title of the ROM. So if you look at the top there, you can see Nightfire popping up and down. You can show the title of the apps. So that's for the app side of things, the same thing in principle. And you can also show the title of the console, which it will just add like GBA to that title that's up there, which it tends to look a little bit cluttered. So I usually have those disabled. You can also edit ROMs on an individual basis. So you can go to, if you press start over a specific ROM, go into ROM options, then you can manage it yourself, and you can manually, if you wanted to add your own screenshots or your own artwork, you can do it that way. You can also, if you've got ROMs that haven't scraped properly, you can scrape them individually and try a different scraper. You can also set, if you have some games that don't work on a specific emulator, for example, like if you're using Azahar or Citra, and then one works better on the other, you can manually apply it on a per ROM basis. So you go, these ones boot in Azahar, but this boots in Citra, or whatever you might be doing. Again, the retro achievements integration does look a lot better. So if I find a game where I've actually got some retro achievements. So if you notice here, there is a little bit of a delay with, on the kind of bottom right of the top screen, there's a little bit of a delay with it loading the retro achievements. Obviously, that's because that's the point, it's kind of pinging that hash, so it does take a second to load. So obviously, if you're fast scrolling, it's not pinging it a million times and upsetting retro achievements. If I go to American Wasteland, which doesn't seem to be loading. Okay, we'll try the Underground one. So I did show this off before, but it is one of the best ways to view the achievements is having this little menu. One thing I would like, so if any of the devs are watching this, I know some of you have, is if there is a way from the main achievements menu here, oh, there we go. If there's a way from the main achievements menu here to jump straight to that game, so you can access the more detail about the achievements, which just tends to show you the same as the top screen, which is something I'll cover shortly because they have also started work on the single screen mode. So what I'll do, once I've wrapped up here, I'll quickly demonstrate what it looks like on my Odin. It's pretty much the home screen, so it doesn't have the extra artwork at the top, but it still looks great. It's not quite as in active development as the dual screen one because that's the priority, but it's still well worth checking out. So I think I've basically covered everything that's new. Again, there's been loads of bug fixes. It's something that I advise you check out. And again, if you want to support the devs and get on the pre-releases, then you can do so in the Ko-Fi. So I'm just going to quickly flip over to my 4, and then I'll show you the single screen mode. So here is the screen on my Odin 3. I know I said Thor a second ago, that's my fault. So if I go to iiSU, wherever I've installed it, there it is, and open it up, you'll see that it's pretty much the same. It's just formatted ever so slightly differently to take advantage of the single screen. So I've not done a lot of scraping on this yet. It is still running in the background. So if I swipe down, you'll see that, oh wait, probably crashed my plugged it in. So you can just tap to resume on that, and then it'll carry on in the background. So yeah, that's just a quick overview. I say quick. It's an overview of the new iiSU update. There'll be more of these to come for every major update they release. So hopefully I'll see you again very soon with some more iiSU news. Once again, if you like this video, I'd appreciate a like or a subscribe. Tell your friends, and I'll see you in the next one.